Today we will say what are arrays, how to declare arrays, and use the arrays in the PHP. So we are already familiar. Array is nothing but the ordered collection of key value pairs. And in order to create an array, we declare a variable. We use a built-in function called as array. We supply the values. Now, when I try to create this one, it just means to say that the number is of type array, and it stores the value 1 to 3, which are supplied here. And the array has individual element within the array is marked by an index or a key, depending upon how we are declared it. So this is what is an array. Now, if you specify a key for the index, that key will be used up. If you don't specify it, then by default index will start from 0 with the integer number. There are three kinds of arrays are there: numerical array, associative array, and multi-dimensional array. Numerical array is something that has the index as numbers. Associative array is wherein you give the name for the indexes, and these indexes are usually called as key. Why it is called as associative is when you supply a key, the key will be mapped to the value. So that is why there is an association between a key and value. That is why it is called as an associative array. The next one is a multi-dimensional array. That is, we have more than one dimension within a array. So let's look at a function, how to create an array. To create an array, one of the simplest way is to call a built-in function called as an array. Optionally, you can supply a key followed by a value, or you can just put the values each separated by a. The other way of creating the array, unlike the other programming language, is you just create a variable and you supply the open and close square brackets without the indexes. It just means to say that I have created an array with the index 0 and I supplied a value to it. Now this is very different from the other programming language, wherein if at all you want to try to do this kind of things, you will have to first disclose that it's a type of array. Whereas here we are not doing it. We just start a variable, we assign direct values to it, and it's going to, when you put a square bracket in front of it, it's going to assume that you want to create an array. So students' array will be created, and the first element within the array is whatever value that you are supplying. Again, if you repeat the same statement, it's going to create the second element within the same array, and so on, so forth. The most general and non-confusing way of creating an array is by using a array function. You can do that thing. And also, you must understand one important thing. I think in the last class I've already told you. Arrays are not of the same type. You can mix the data type within the array. So you'll notice here, the first element is a string, second is an integer, third is a double, and the fourth is a boolean. So you can have anything in the array. Array is just a collection of items. In fact, it's a collection of ordered collection of items. Again, if you really want to specify the indices for the arrays, you can do that thing. So I can declare a student and then supply an index 0, 1, 2, 3, and I can supply the value. So what's the difference between writing this statement and writing this statement? Here, I'm not specifying any indices. That means to say that I expect the PHP to put the indices, whereas here I specify the exclusive indices. Like the other programming language, when you create the indices, there is no need that the indices has to be in the same order. You can create the indices in any order. For example, if you notice over here, the 40 comes first, 25 next, 50 later. It's up to you how you create the indices. It is very flexible as compared to the other programming language. Now let's talk about the numerical index arrays. Now, whenever you create a numerical index array, it just means to say that you are supplying the indices which are numbers or integers over here. These indices are integers. Now, if you don't specify, it is assumed to be starting at 0. But if you specify something, then onwards the same number will continue. I think I've already shown you in the last class. If you want to know how many elements are within the array, there is a built-in function called as count, which you have used in the lab demos, and this will return the count of elements within the array. So let's look at the other way of creating the array. If you want to create a array, this works only in the 5.4 version, I think. The older version of PHP will not support this syntax. You can directly create a array by supplying the value within this square bracket. This works only in the newer version of the array, newer version of the PHP. This array will not work in the all versions of the PHP. But if you know very well that you are going to use a very latest version of PHP, this will work. This is a new syntax that has been added. Now, how do I retrieve the values? If it is numerical index, you supply the name of the array, you supply the indices. That's it. You can return the value. So, if you can assign a value to an array, or you can retrieve a value. You can assign a value, or if you want, you can retrieve the value out of the array. The next one is how can I use it in my programming language, or how do I use it in my program? You can create a for loop and you can start the indices and you go up to the count and then say for I is equal to 0 up to the count of elements, get the elements out. This is a very simple way of doing it. Other way of doing it, you have already seen in the for loop, and that is you take the values, or you can take key values. So for each value within the student, get individual value out of it and then display it. This was demonstrated in the last class. The other way of creating array is the associative array. Now this time we are supplying the key value. So I am having a key here and I am supplying the value here. It just means to say that the key is not an index or it's not a numerical value. It is the one that I am supplying. So we have key value. How is it going to create this particular array? This is going to create a box with the 95 and all these values, and the indices will be 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be their name. The other way of creating it is instead of supplying the numerical value here, you can supply the key here and then assign the values. So if you just notice the difference, here the indices are 0, 1, 2, 3, and instead of this numerical indices, you can just supply the keys. Okay, so it's as simple as that. If you want to use this same analogy in the array function, supply a key and say it points to the value. Key points to value, key points to value, and there is a comma separation between the individual items. So you can have a key following to a value. And in the last class, I've already shown you the key can be given a numerical value that is pointing to a other value. So you can do that. How do I retrieve the value? Supply the name of the array within this square bracket. Supply the key that you want the elements to be. How do I use it in the program construct? The simplest way is you use the each function. This each function will retrieve one element out of it, and in the last class I've shown you actually it returns an array containing 4 items, out of which you take the key and you take the values and then start pointing it. If you don't want to take the key, you can just take the value. However, you must be careful when it is returning that the array has 4 elements. The first element is a key. So it will return a key. If you don't supply this parameter here, what you get will be the key, not the value. So it will return the value in the same order in which they are stored in the array. So let's look at this function in detail. So each function returns the current key value pair, and there are 4 elements within it. Every time it retrieves a value from the array, the internal pointer within the array will move to the next element. If the internal element points past the end of the array's boundary, then if you call each after that, it will, every time you call it, it's going to return a false statement indicating it cannot fetch any more items from the array. If you want the internal pointer to go to the first element, use the reset method it will reset the internal pointer of the array back to the first position. So every time you call each function, the internal pointers will start moving to the next. Once it crosses the end of the array, then if you call each, it will return a false value. If you want it to come back to the first element, call the reset method. On that array reset, supply the name of the array, it will reset the function. So let's look at an array here. So I have an array with the key value. If I call each and student, now when you create an array, by default the internal pointer will be pointing to the first element unless and otherwise you start moving the element. So I just created an array, so that means to say that the internal pointer, it will be pointing to the first element which is there within this array. Then when I try to call this each method, it's going to return 4 elements. It's not going to return one element, it's going to return 4 elements. 2 of them are exactly replica of the others. So the first element that it returns is the key, second element is the value. So ARR is an array, the first element is the key, the second element is the value of this element that is written down. Again it will repeat the same thing with the key and value. So you get actually 4 elements. You can use any 2 of them, or if you want you can use all 4 of them. Most of the time we just make use of these 2, that is the first and the next element. Others we don't venture into it, but if you want you can do that. So when I called this method here, this was returning 4 elements, out of which I am taking only 2 elements. So this will return the first 2 elements. If you look at what are the first 2 elements that it is trying to return, the first 2 elements will be the key and the value pair. So it's going to return. Again, if you want go for the third and fourth element that is returned, it will be a repetition of the same thing. It will not repeat it will not give you the second element. Instead, from within the first element itself, first it will return a key, then value. Again, it will do the same thing. Only difference is it will try to give it in the form of an associative array. That's how that they have written the function. Most of the time we are happy with the first 2 elements. We don't usually venture into the third and fourth element. So if you want to get the value, so this is let's assume that you have the marks of the student, and if I want to display the index number and the marks of the student, so I can just call each and then assign it to a variable here, and that this will be an array. The first item will be the key, the second item will be the value. So we get key value pair out of that. So how I get it here, the first item will be the key, second will be the value. So you get the key and value. There is no need that every time you have to assign it to list function. There is no need to do this one. You can directly assign it to an array and then start picking up the element out of it. It is possible, but most of the time whenever you see the code, they will do it in this way, and the list function, it's our list operator. Its work is to simultaneously assign the values to multiple variables. Okay, whether you like it or you don't like it, it's up to you how you go about it. So you can directly assign it to an array or use the list function to assign it to an individual scalar item. So let's look at how this is being done. So we have the key value pair, and I call the each function. From this each function, I take only the first 2 elements. Let me show you again. When you call this each function, the first 2 elements will be key and value. I'm not reading the 3 and 4th element. I just read 2 elements out of it. So whenever I call this each function, I will be taking this and this, that is key and value. Key will be stored in this variable, value will be stored in the other variable. Then I print the values here using the echo statement. So the echo first will take this value and it's going to print it here. There is a greater than symbol and then it will try to print the value which is this. When you call the each function, initially it will read the first element out of the array and it will point the internal pointer to the next element. This is automatically done by the each. So when the while loop returns back, it will again call this each function. When it calls this each this time will return the key as Manish and the value as manish@gmail.com, and those two values will be printed. Once it returns these values, the internal pointer will be pointing to the next element of the array, and if the while loop returns back, it will read the last element, and the last element will have the key Manisha, and the value will be Manisha at Yahoo or any other mail.com, whatever it is. So we have seen this for each. For each is used to return the values from individual element values from the array and display. I'm not going to waste my time on it. So we have array 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have for each. From this array, take the individual value and display. There is a second version of the for each that will help you to take both the key and value. So I have a key here and value. What does this will do? For each key and value within this array, get the value. So you are saying get the first one, get the second one. So this is how it is being done, and I'm going to display the values over here. It's not a new thing. Okay. Now, can I have only keys and only associative array? Can I mix them up? The answer is yes. You can have a combination of it. So here you will notice that there is numerical indices. There is numerical indices. Numerical indices. Here I am supplying a key value. So again I am supplying a key value. So I can have a numerical index array as well as key value pair array. It's you can have it in any way. It is too flexible to manipulate it in any way you want it. Okay, and if you try to display the value, you will notice that the first element will have the index 0. The second element will have the index 1. The third element will have the index 2, and the fourth element, you notice the index is already supplied here, that is the key, and the value is supplied here. The fourth element, the index is supplied here, and the value is supplied on the other side. So you can have it in any order you want it. The next one is a multi-dimensional array. A multi-dimensional array is an array that contains more than one dimension. You can have 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, up to n dimension, up to you how you want to use it. And what's the meaning of saying multi-dimension? It's an array of array. So instead of having an individual item as a scalar, we can have individual items as an array and then use it. So let's look at a simple syntax for this. So I have an array, and individual items within this array are arrays by itself. So it's an array of array. So it's an array that contains 3 arrays inside it. So the first array will be this, second, third. So it is actually a tabular format. So if at all I want to get the first row, I will have to say the array demo of 0th index. It's going to give me this array. If I want to get the element within this array, then I have to individually index them. So this will be 0th index for this element, first index of this element, and the second index for this element. So it's a tabular format. You can think of using it. Let's look at a simple example. I want to store the cars here, and I have the name of the car, the model number, and the values in lakhs. So if I want to store it in a tabular format, I have 3 cars here. So I have 3 rows at this place. So I have 3 elements here, and so this is the first element, and this will be the first one. Next one will be this one, and the third is this, So this. Within this array, if you want to get individual elements, then you have to go this way around. So this is how it goes. So how do I retrieve the values? You are already familiar. You have to supply two indices. The first one is the row. The second one will be the column. So row and column you can supply. Now can I have the associative array in the multi-dimension? The answer is yes, you can have an associative array. What's the difference between this and the previous one? In the previous one, no keys were supplied for the individual rows. Here I am supplying the key here. So this row will be called as value 1. This row will be called as value 2. This row will be called as value 3. Can I have a key here? The answer is yes. You can have it in any way. It's too flexible to be tried with. So let's look at the other way around. What is being done here is I'm not supplying a individual row. I'm not supplying a name, but individual column. I'm supplying a name here. So I'm saying that this array, this is the key, and this is the value. This is the key, this is the value, and this is the key, this is the value. Again, do I have to have a square matrix like this? Can I leave out one of this element? Can I have only two elements in this array? The answer is yes. You can have it in any order you want. So it need not be always a 3 cross 3 matrix. You don't want, you can just say this is only one element, or you can say this is two elements. So in that case, these two will not be there. This will not be there. This will not be there. If you leave out the first one, it will not be there. So it is highly flexible. You want, you can manipulate it in any way you want it. Okay, so up to that level you can go. The arrays need not be, all the elements within a multi-dimensional array need not be the same. So it's like if you have the other programming language where you have a pointer to the other element. So that's the idea that we have. One more example wherein I am supplying a key here for the individual element. Again, this is a 3 cross 3 matrix. I have the key as not here. Then within that, I am supplying a numerical key here. So notice that the first item, this is a numerical key that has been supplied. Even though it is same as the index value, you can supply. So one is the string, the other one is the numerical value. So you can do it in any way you want it. Again, this is a highly flexible. Now, how do I get the second item? How do I get Nokia 6030 out of here? The first index is Nokia here. The key is Nokia for this one. Then 0, 1, and 2. This is going to be the second index. Supply it in any way you want it, you can use it. Okay, there are functions I will not be able to do it because of delay in the start of the class. So we have this printer. The other two I'm going to show you how these things are going to come out. In the lab itself, I'm going to show you. You just create a export and wire dump, and we're going to say it. There is no point in explaining it unless you see that. But I don't have time now to start showing you again. Let's look at some of the function, and this could be one of the questions. Explain any 5 array function. Remember, we have already seen 2 functions. One of the functions that we have already seen is that array. Again, this machine unfortunately restarted, so I don't have the other capability with this now. Now this array, you already noticed this array, this function. This is also one of the functions. This function array will help you to create a new array and assign it to a variable. It's an array function. It helps you to create it. The next function that you have already seen is the count, which will count the number of items within an array. That is also one of the functions. I am not discussing those functions because it's already done. However, these are not array functions. This is a print function that is used to print the values. They are not exclusively for arrays. They can be used for any other things. Let's look at the first function. And if you go to this site, that is a PHP.NET. I think I've already shown you that site. PHP.NET has a lot of functions, and I'm only explaining few of them, very selected few of them. There will be tons of functions which are available directly meant for the arrays, and it's not going to be for me to explain all of them. And they have given a lot of examples. But until it comes back, I will switch to the other part because. So let's look at what is the use of it. When you look at this particular name, you may feel that it's going to combine two arrays. The answer is no. It is not meant for combining two arrays into one. It is a very strange function. Let's look at what it is trying to do. I have two arrays here. One has green, red, and yellow, and others have the names of the fruit. I say combine A with the B. What it is going to do is, if you think that it's going to say red, green, and it's going to combine these two, the answer is very different. What it does is it takes the first array and takes its value as the key, and the second array's value as the value. So it takes one from the key from first array, value from the second array, and creates a separate array for you. So it's a very different thing. So you are combining a key with values. So that is what is the meaning of it. So it creates an array by using one array for keys and the another for values. So it is used to combine a keys with the values to create a third array. So it is not taking one array and connecting it to the other array and making a big array out of it. That's not the use of it. So usually people get confused with it, and this kind of question can be asked even in the MCQs. Example on this, what is the output of it, and if you are not very careful, you may end up in trouble. Okay, it will return a false if the number of elements are not equal. Suppose the keys are 10 and values are 5, and if you say combine now, it's going to say it's not possible because keys are more, values are less. Again, the same thing. If the values are more and keys are less, and if you ask it to combine, it's not going to combine it. And so both of them must be equal. If there are 3 items on the keys, 3 items on the values, it will make it as a 3 items new array. Okay. And if you go over here, I've taken all the examples from there because I don't want to reinvent it. And if you notice over here, these are the functions which are available. Up to here, you have all of them are exclusively for array function. Okay, this is PHP.NET, and if you try to search for the PHP function, you will straight away end up in this site PHP.NET. This is the official site for PHP, and there are many other sites which will give you better answer. This is a direct example that is taken from their site. The next one is the array differences. Okay. Now this is like subtracting one array from the other array. So what is it going to do? It will match this array with any number of arrays. Again, if you are not aware of reading the syntaxes, then you have a syntax like this, and if a square bracket is supplied within the syntax, it just means to say that this is optional. So 2 must be there, 2 values must be there. Array 1 and array 2 is required. Array 3 and subsequent are optional. This function will work with 2 or any number. So 2 is a minimum. Okay. So let's look at these two. So I have an array here with the green, and the green is also there in the other array. Red and yellow, these are not matching. Blue and red is there, and the other one is there. Now, if I say, okay, find me the difference, what I'm going to get in this one. Now, it's like subtracting one out from the other one. Now, green and green is there. Okay. Red and red is there. Yellow is there in the other side. It's not there in the first one. But blue is there in the first one. It is not there in the second one. So then it's going to say the difference is blue is extra in the first array. Remember, this may be extra in the second array. Subtracting, it's like it's the difference in the relational operation. I don't know if you are familiar with the difference operator. You have 2 sets, and if you want to find the difference between one set and the other, you take the first set, and if you take the second set, difference is what is extra in this set. Extra which are there in the other set is not taken as the bit. So extra in this one is blue. This may be extra in the second one, but they don't care about it. So when you say difference, what is extra in this or what is there in this array which is not present on the other side? So blue is there in this array, it is not there in the other one. If I write it in the other way around, if I write array 1 first and array 2 first and array 1 next, then yellow will come because yellow is extra in that case. So that's what is a difference. So what is the difference? It compares the array 1 against one or more other arrays and returns the value in array 1 that are not present in any other arrays. So elements in array 1 which is not there in the other element. So in this example, that not this one. In this example, blue is there in the array 1 which is not there in the other array. You can combine it, compare it with the many other arrays and then get the answer. The next one is fill. This word itself will tell you what it's going to do. It's going to fill the element starting at this number of elements and the value. For example, if you say fill from the from the fifth element next to sixth element, starting from the fifth index next 6 element. So 5 next, that is the count. Start at here and how many elements has to be filled. So start at index number 5 and next 6 elements. So if you count 1, 2 and up to here, it's 6 element. Next 6 element including 5 then 6 element. Now if you supply minus here, the starting value is minus, it will start that as the starting index. Then onwards, it will fill using the other indices. Okay, this is used to fill. Now, one thing that you'll notice is they say that the data type is mixed. What's the meaning of saying mixed? I never discussed anything about the mixed. Mixed means any data type. It could be array, it could be string, it could be float, it could be anything. When they say int, it just means to say it must be an integer number. It cannot be a float, it cannot be a boolean or anything. This could be anything, value could be anything. It could be an array by itself, it could be